Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Up to date I've got one of my all-time favourite Hornby tank engines. I'm not going to spend too much time waffling on about this one before I show it to you because it's that great you will just want to see it. So the locomotive is this, it is the Hornby M7. And just looking at, I mean, when I first saw just the box alone, how sad is this? Just the box alone kind of took my breath away when I first saw this. I absolutely love the M7 class. You might be able to tell this is a slightly older box. I reckon this model, the one I've got right here, must be about 10 years old now. But don't let that fool you. The last time I looked at this, I was absolutely blown away by the level of detail. It's a few years on now since I did that. Whether or not this is still going to really impress me, I don't know, but fingers crossed it will do, and we're going to have a really good look at this. We'll inspect every little element of it and figure out what these are like. The amazing thing is that these are still in Hornby's range today. The downside is that it is just the BR Black version, which does look very, very smart, but it's not quite a patch on the lovely sort of southern malachite green, is it? But they are still available, as I say, and the RRP is £155.99. I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's a great model from what I remember. Is it worth that? I guess we'll have to figure it out. I believe Hattons have a couple left in stock at the time of filming for £135. Again, that's rather expensive, but if I can't get an affiliate link, I will put it down there. Who knows, maybe this will impress us to the point where it is actually worth that kind of money. But let's get this out, let's find out for sure, the Hornby M7 tank engine. The other thing I remember about this model, besides how amazing it is how horrible the packaging is. I mean, it looks all right on the outside. Just wait until we get inside. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're so lucky that Hornby decided to change their packaging style. On the outside, you can tell that it's just a little bit uneconomically packaged. I mean, it's quite a large tank engine, but I expect these days these will be coming in a much more reasonably sized box. But anyway, it's not really very important, is it? Let me show you the end of the box then. I really do love this loco. It's one of my prized possessions. It is R2923. It's a Southern Railways 044T. Odd wheel configuration, but there are quite a few models on the market now with that configuration. It's a class M7 locomotive 242, that is the Southern running number, and yes, this is DCC ready. I believe they have 8-pin decoder sockets inside them, which Hornby locos are still having fitted to them today. That's a bit old-fashioned, isn't it, that? Hopefully Hornby will find a way to update that at some point. Anyway, it's not one of those boxes that has loads of information on the back, which is good in a way because I'll give you some information later on. It just means we can get the thing out straight away. Right, are you ready to see the insane packaging? I hope you are. Oh, something is scrunched up inside the box. We'll have to see what that is. Right, can I get this out? That is the question. All right, yes I can. There we go. If you're not familiar with this type of packaging, you're in for a wild ride today. Okay, what is the scrunched piece of paper then? Let's take a look. Oh God, yeah, I remember this. Look, a piece of paper that says fitting a decoder. This is one thing I don't get. I suppose this was designed in the days where decoders were a little bit bigger and chunkier. If you actually want to chip this locomotive, as you can see, you have to remove the heavy weights from the inside of the tanks, which is a problem because this locomotive doesn't feature any die-cast on the boiler or the footplate, as far as I can remember, which means if you want DCC, you're going to have a really super light loco at the end of it. So that is useless. That is one dated feature. Whether or not Hornby have fixed this in the more recent release, I do not know. But yeah, I'm glad that I'm not running DCC on this locomotive. And then we've got the more standard operating and maintenance instructions. 044T class M7. Let's have a look inside. You might see some of the mechanism here, but I will show it to you in more detail. No, there's very little in there, isn't there? A bit about lubrication, fitting the accessories, yeah, that's fine. Tiny little bit about body removal, etc. And on the back, oh, finally, yep, there we go. Little bit of info on the chassis. It's quite a basic chassis. It does have a nice 5-pole motor, but no flywheel or anything like that. However, it doesn't stop the loco. Believe me, the loco is an incredible, incredible runner. Right, okay, well, there is a little bit of an accessories bag up on the top here. Let's take a look at what we get. Okay, so it's quite a lot of just unpainted detail, really. We have two NEM couplings. I don't know whether or not There we have two NEM couplings. It's got vacuum pipes inside there, a few other little bits and bobs. I can see some screw link couplings, that's a nice inclusion. Some of Hornby's latest locos haven't included those, so it's nice to see that. Yep, quite a few bits, and of course the instructions did go over where to fit them. Right, are you ready? Are you going to see how we open this packaging? I've joked in the past that you need an engineering degree to open up one of these boxes. Maybe that's a slight hyperbole, but it's not far off from the truth. Right, so I think you stand it up like this. You pull the two ends off, right, then the front comes off like that. I don't know who came up with this, but I'd like to try some of their medicine at some point. Okay, and then you've got access to the locomotive, which is sort of just balanced quite dangerously on this foam block, which is also covered in other bits of foam which can foul the locomotive if you're not careful. In fact, this is doing. Oh, I hate this. Okay, I've got it. So if you're willing to put up with the frustration of opening up the packaging, you get this beautiful treat of what is one of the nicest tank engines I think I've ever had the pleasure of owning. Just look at this, the finish, the livery. It just is absolutely amazing. I could believe that this model was a brand new tooled locomotive directly from Hornby, released just this year. I mean, it just looks that good, doesn't it? And yet I've had this for absolutely ages. This must have blown my mind when I first saw this. I mean, we think the hobby has come a long way in the last few years in terms of quality and detail. Well, it's models like this that really throw a spanner into the works for that, because look, 10 years ago and we had locomotives like this. It's unbelievable. It's not 100% up to modern standards. I mean, we've seen a little taste of that where the DCC fitting and such is concerned, and it is also quite a plasticky model. All of the bodywork and the footplate and that is all just made of plastic, so the loco isn't dreadfully heavy. I will get it on the scales to let you know exactly what this weighs, but before we do any of that, before we take a close look at this, let's have a little bit of history on the very interesting and very beautiful Class M7. So the M7 was introduced in 1897 for the LSWR to the design of Dougal Drummond for small passenger trains around the London area. 105 were built in total between 1887 and 1911, and they were used on push-pull services, suburban passenger runs, branch lines, and even in the earlier days they were used on sort of mainline passenger services around the south of England. The class proved to be extremely successful, and it was actually the largest 044 tank ever to be used in Britain, making it an incredibly large tank engine back when it was introduced at the end of the 1800s. Yeah, no larger 044 tank was ever produced. The engines were transferred into Southern Railway ownership in 1923, where they remained in service until withdrawal, which began in the late 1930s, although some examples did survive until 1965. By the end of the steam era, all but two had been scrapped. The remaining two are still around today. They're housed at the National Railway Museum and the Swanage Railway, respectively. So there it is, up close and personal for you, the absolutely stunning Hornby Class M7. And I'm sure you'll agree this thing is just incredible to look at, isn't it? But the thing that really strikes me about this model, right, and bear in mind that this particular example could be sort of 10 years old, it's been run a lot and it's been handled a lot since then. But unlike a lot of Hornby's more modern locomotives with this level of detail, the quality and the care in the assembly of this model is almost absolutely unbelievable. I mean, look at it, every single part is straight, the decoration is 100% precise, and believe me, this doesn't look as good as it did when I first got the thing. It's just absolutely amazing. In fact, the only quality issue I could possibly find with this is inside the coal bunker, where there's a very obvious and also worryingly detailed fingerprint. So if you are looking to collect fingerprints for some nefarious, fraudulent purpose, buy a Hornby M7, you'll be able to lift a couple from it. But no, in all seriousness, this model is wonderful. I cannot believe how good this looks, and I also can't believe what a difference the build quality and the accurate lining and all of that other stuff makes to the locomotive, and how much more realistic it looks as a result of that. So let's take a closer look, shall we? Well, look at the boiler first of all. The banding is ultra fine, and there are no parts of the banding that sort of overlap and look unrealistic. No, this one really is decorated with care. You've got the slightly glossy southern lettering on the sides of the tanks there, same with the coal bunker as well. I mean, again, they can't really be faulted. And look at the sheer amount of lining on this locomotive as well. You've got the running plate, plastic running plate of course, but yeah, it's all very, very nicely lined. All of the steps have got lining, the side of the coal bunker, the splashers. Yeah, the lining and the decoration is superb, and I cannot spot a single fault with it. It's really, really impressive. There is quite a number of separately fitted details as well. I mean, up here we have the safety valves. These, as you can tell, are made of metal. That's quite a nice quality touch, actually. And they're set into the dome. They're nice and straight, no wonkiness present there. Look at the whistle assembly and all of the pipework in front of the cab. How many times have I reviewed a locomotive that has a similar level of detail to this, but is covered in glue in areas like this, and it's glistening, and it just ruins the realism slightly. But look at this one. That makes a big difference. The whistle, incidentally, is just made of plastic, which does show, I think, but obviously not a huge deal. Look at the smoke box door. You've got this thing complete with really tiny, slim lamp brackets. And don't forget, these have been fitted to the model for 10 years. The thing's been handled and messed about with quite a lot. They're all ruler straight, and none of them have broken off. It's just real quality. You've got the nice separately fitted smoke box dart, which is separately painted as well. I really like that. The buffer beam is nicely painted as well. It's complete with the vacuum pipe, and you've got these really fine metal buffers, which are sprung. Look at this, there we go. And they're quite stiff as well, so there's quite a bit of resistance in the springiness there, to the point where if you were going to use the realistic screw link couplings, those buffers might actually have some use, which is interesting. The lower boiler is finished off with the separately fitted valves. The underside of the boiler isn't fully detailed. You can see where it transitions to chassis, which is unpainted, and there's certainly no representation of the valve gear or anything like that between the frames, although that is a very, very tiny area. It's quite unlikely that your eyes are going to ever venture down there, but yeah, I suppose a more modern locomotive would have detail down there. The wheel set, look at this, you've got nicely moulded wheels with the axles painted. The bogie wheels at the back are fully moulded, so you can't actually see the axles, which is even better. The loco is complete with metal brake rigging, as you can see, none of your plastic rubbish. There's even detail on the chassis. You can see all of the rivets there on the actual chassis itself, and the underside is complete with pipe work and such, which is again just painted plastic, but I suppose we have seen worse, haven't we? Now, looking at the front of the cab, it looks like there are no windows fitted. You won't believe this. Well, no, there are no windows there. But if we look inside the cab, you can see the windows are just hinged open. These are modelled in the open position. Now, that makes absolutely no sense. You would never see them up there inside the cab unless you're holding the locomotive. No, they'd be much more visible if the windows were closed. But what a crazy little feature that is. That is really, really unusual. I've never seen that done before. They don't move, they're not hinged or anything. In fact, I broke one of them off once trying to figure out if they did actually move. Completely pointless feature. It means that the windows might as well not be there. But it is really, really cool to see just a little variation like that from the usual design. The cab detail itself is absolutely wonderful. Look at that. We've got all of the gauges picked out. This is a reasonably enclosed cab, and yet you've still got paintwork on the gauges. Tons of separately fitted parts inside there. Look at the back windows. They're individually glazed, and the glazing pieces are really neat and tidy as well. There's no flashing around them or anything. The white paint inside the cab just looks astonishingly good. And the view from the back looks pretty good as well. You don't have a proper grille fitted to these windows. I think that sort of corrugated effect is just part of the moulding, but that's fair enough, I suppose, isn't it? It doesn't look too bad, let's say that. The coal bunker, I've already showed you a little bit. You can see that it has this nicely moulded coal guard. The fact that it is completely opaque without any gaps in it does appear to be prototypical if you pull up a real photo of the M7, so that's all right. The backside, pardon the expression, is covered again with lamp irons, very fine ones, all nicely fitted. You've got painted vacuum pipes fitted to the buffer beam, and then into the back we do have that NEM coupling, which is actually fitted. I think I must have done that then, because they were still in the detail bag. And of course there is the option to fit one to the front if you want. You just have to replace one of the details for it. Okay, so I mean that gives you an idea of the level of detail. There are things I haven't talked about. I mean, you've got the fine metal handrails, which are actually super fine on this model. You've got lots of detail on top of the tanks as well, lots of it separately fitted. Yeah, it's just absolutely wonderful, isn't it? If this was released today, would you be impressed with it? I'll put a poll on my community tab, actually. If Hornby announced and released this locomotive this year in this state, would you be able to tell that it was sort of 10 years old or more? Well, do let me know over on the community tab. For now though, let's take a look at the mechanism. We'll get the lovely locomotive down onto the track and I'll give it a test for you. So there she is, the beautiful M7 down onto the track, and hopefully now you can understand why I love this one so much. Like I keep saying, easily one of my favourite tank engines, and the mechanism is pretty decent overall. It's really, really impressive. We'll start off with the least impressive aspect first of all, which is of course the weight. So this weighs in at just 178 grams, and that's lighter than the Webb coal tank, a smaller locomotive. It's also considerably lighter than the Johnson 1P, which has the same wheel configuration as this, but again, slightly smaller. So it's not very heavy, and I suppose the die-cast running plate or a die-cast boiler would really have improved that. So pity about the weight. The loco does have proper turned metal bearings on the driving wheels though. I'm not going to show you those because the base keeper plate is hardwired in place, which would make it really difficult to show that. But trust me, the driving wheels have proper turned metal bearings and pickup wipers going to them, as do the bogie wheels. So these are the non-driven wheels. You can see they do have pickups going to them as well, which is great. If I take off the body, you can see the chassis here. It is quite a neat chassis, not an awful lot in terms of features. There's the motor. It looks like the basic sort of 040 CAN motor, but this is quite a nice quality 5-pole motor. No flywheel fitted or anything though, which is a little bit of a pity, so you might see a little bit of erratic running from this. There is the 8-pin decoder socket. Look at the mess of wires around it though. Fitting a decoder onto that, which of course involves even more wires, doesn't sound like a job I would really enjoy, particularly given how little space there is in this locomotive. So yeah, do that at your own risk. The pulling power isn't absolutely fantastic. Now, there are no traction tyres on this model. All of the wheels are bare metal. With the Bachmann 1P, there was an alternative set of driving wheels, which means that you could improve the traction if you wanted to. I don't like that feature, and it's not a feature I would ever use, but it was really nice to have the option. With this locomotive, there is no such option, and you can't really get proper access to the axles either because it's not designed quite as nicely as the Bachmann 1P was. So that's a little bit of a pity, and consequently the pulling force isn't great. 0.13 newtons, that's the tractive effort. The 1P was 0.18 even without its traction tyres, so yeah, it's not very powerful. 11 coaches is the theoretical maximum on straight and level track, and bearing that in mind, I've just got 4 coaches, 4 nice Hornby Southern coaches. I think that's a reasonable amount given that my layout has inclines and curves on it. So let's first of all, before we couple to the coaches, let's show you the performance. This locomotive has been run in, so you know it's already at its best, and just take a look at this. Are you ready? Here we go, turning it up. Wow. Again, consider that this is not a brand new locomotive. Consider this has been around a little while. How many modern locomotives actually crawl as well as this? It's just incredible, isn't it? So, I mean, it's quite feature-free, I suppose, this locomotive. It doesn't have any firebox glow effect. You know, it's all mostly plastic, no speaker inside or anything like that, no flywheel even. But at the end of the day, the performance is just stunning. Perhaps not quite so good backwards, actually. That's dramatically worse backwards. Perhaps I need to give it a bit more running in backwards then. But forwards, look at this. Let's turn it up a little. Look at that. That was over the express point, by the way. No cutting out whatsoever. It's reasonably quiet. It does get a little bit louder as you turn the controller up, but yeah, it is reasonably quiet. Let's just have that crawl one more time, because it really is a shockingly good one, isn't it? Let's see if I can get it even slower. There we go. And also, to say that there's no flywheel inside there, it's not bad, is it? That is actually crawling. Look at that. Amazing. I don't know whether the latest ones, if you've got a newer, sort of the BR Black version that's in the current Hornby range, does yours run as well as this? Do let me know down in the comments, because this one, and it always has been as well, you know, straight out of the box, always been a wonderful, wonderful runner. So that's epic. Really, really impressed with that. It's not a speedy runner either. I mean, it's got a fair range of speed, but that's 50% speed, which is about right. You wouldn't want it any faster in terms of the gearing, but I would say that's about right. So there you go. That's what 50% looks like. Right, let's go and couple up to those coaches then and see if she can handle them. I'm pretty sure I've had a couple to 4 coaches before, but yeah, we might as well verify it, mightn't we? Right, forwards then, okay, and let's give it a try. Slowly to begin with, and then I'll accelerate her a little bit. Look at that. The control is so good. Man, right, come on then, accelerate. Don't see any wheel slip really, but you're in a better position. Let's call it 40% speed then. I always think that looks reasonable with that. So we'll catch up with the M7 in just a second. On the middle line I have, wait for it, it's the loco whose ears must be burning because I've talked about it quite a lot already. It's the Johnson Hornby from Bachmann. It is a better model, I think, and it was even cheaper, £5 cheaper. Yeah, generally better in most areas, but then again, it's not an M7, is it? So if you want an M7, obviously the Hornby one is still excellent. Okay, there it goes. Also got 4 coaches, of course. And then on the inside line, I really wanted to run this. This is the other 044 locomotive I have. It's the Hornby H-Class, but yeah, it's completely dead. It's on motor number 3, and it's still completely dead. No good whatsoever, these. So don't buy the Hornby H-Class. That would be my recommendation. Instead, I'm going to be running another Lemon that does fit today's theme. So see if you can figure out what that theme is. It is the Oxford Adams radial tank. And recently I stripped this down and made some adjustments to it. So I'm going to run it today just to see whether or not I've managed to fix the problem. I don't have high hopes, in fact I don't have any hopes for it, but we have to try these things. So off it goes. Let's catch up with the M7 and see how it performs on the gradients and things. But here's a hint, it's awesome. Alright, here it comes. Oh, it's just a joy to run. I can't believe I don't run this more actually. It's easy to forget how much you love a locomotive when you haven't run it for a little while. But look at that, it's just perfectly constant. Absolutely wonderful. I didn't talk to you about the gauging, I don't think. The gauging is fine. It averaged 14.5 millimeters, which is a little bit tight, back to back that is, but it's, you know, only 0.1 millimeters more than it should be, so it's not a problem at all. The gauging was absolutely fine, and it shows because the performance is faultless. So I think where the performance is concerned, this loco has to get a pass, doesn't it? It's just marvellous. It's just so incredibly reliable, and it's not that heavy on pickups. I mean, that's just the nature of the locomotive, only 4 wheels per track. I don't think I've ever seen the thing cut out, not on express points, not on curves. It's just so incredibly reliable. Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. It's not the most powerful locomotive in the world, and that's fair enough. They weren't that powerful in real life. But as far as good running is concerned, it doesn't get a lot better than this, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's just classical Hornby with their great mechanisms. Really, really impressed with that. And of course, it's such a beauty, isn't it? Just look at it going along. That livery is the best, in my opinion. There may be others out there. I don't know. I think Hornby might have done an LSWR livery, possibly. I could have just dreamt that. Maybe that would beat it, but yeah, it's a lot better than the BR Black. I really hope Hornby bring out some of the older sort of pre-grouping liveries for this loco, because they do look so much better than the BR Black, in my opinion, and I do think they'd sell better. Although, yeah, no hate on BR Black, of course, it's still very smart. It's just not quite malachite, is it? There is an odd one out today in the locomotives, in the sidings and such, so do comment below if you think you've figured out what that is. We'll see what people come up with. Let's have some ratings then for the overall super impressive and still up to date really Hornby Class M7 locomotive. So the level of detail overall on balance I've decided to give 5 stars. Yes, there was that slight issue with the lack of valve gear between the frames or whatever, but I think that's a very, very minor issue. And overall the level of detail, so that's the cab interior mainly, the decoration, the number of separately fitted parts, I think that is all deserving of 5 stars really. Same thing is true of the performance really. I mean, it's super robust on the track. It never cuts out, it never derails, it never slows down, etc. It's an amazing crawler. It's so nice and smooth. I can't find a way to fault the performance, so it has to get 5 stars. The pulling power isn't absolutely fantastic. That's because the loco doesn't weigh as much as it ought to, so it can only haul 11 coaches. That's the tractive effort of 0.13 newtons. I mean, that is the same as the Hornby Peckett, the 040 Peckett, mind you. And as I say, it's even less than the Bachmann 1P because that has the die-cast running plate and this loco doesn't. But at least even the 1P had the optional traction tyres, which I don't like, but the option was there. So yeah, the pulling power was not fantastic. The mechanism though overall is absolutely fantastic. So you've got proper turned metal bearings on the driving axles, pickups going to every wheel including the bogie, nice 5-pole motor, DCC ready, etc, etc. No flywheel though, so I've got to knock a mark off for that. But overall, yeah, the mechanism is fine. The quality quality overall, again, is fantastic. Very, very little in the way of glue marks and sloppy assembly. I do just wish there was a little bit more metalwork on board just to bring the weight up a little bit. Otherwise, I would have no problem giving this 5-star overall. Value for money then is really where this falls down a little bit. I've given this 3 stars. So this has an RRP of £155.99, which is actually £5 higher than the RRP of Bachmann's 1P. And when you bear in mind that Bachmann are usually much more expensive than Hornby, that just shows how unusually expensive this M7 is from Hornby. So the 1P has got the die-cast running plate, it's got loads more features such as the flickering firebox glow, pre-fitted speaker, it's got the option for extra traction tyres, as I say, and so given that this is £5 more expensive than that and doesn't have any of those features, I don't think this is a great value model, and even the price at the retailers of £132 isn't that great, is it? So yes, I understand that Hornby are a business and have to make money. I don't think anybody doesn't realise that. But in order to do that, they have to give their customers what they paid for, and even though for the most part this locomotive is superb, particularly in the level of detail, £130 to £155 is just nonsense as far as I'm concerned. It's ridiculous. It's a little bit of a rip-off, dare I even say, so that does unfortunately pull the score down a little bit. Overall then, that is a decent score of 7.80 out of 10. Let's put that into the logbook. Oh, there we go, it is in the top 5, which is quite impressive actually, isn't it, given the low score it got on value. Yeah, it just shows how good a runner and what a detailed loco this is. So that's above the web coal tank, below the 94XX. Lovely, lovely models. Well, there you have it then, folks. That is my review on what is possibly one of my all-time favourite tank engines. I'm still not sure about calling it my absolute all-time favourite, but it's certainly among them. On that subject, let me know down in the comments, what is your all-time favourite tank engine? I'd really love to know. Anyway, yeah, that was great fun. I was so enjoying revisiting some of my old favourite locos. Yeah, it just makes the review so much more enjoyable when you know that you're reviewing a real quality loco and there's no nasty surprises. It seems like the Adams radial tank is working okay. I mean, it's still a bit slow. I'm not sure it's healthy that it's going that slow, but it hasn't ground to a halt yet, and it's been running for 10 minutes or so. So maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I should keep working on that, see if I can improve it a bit, because that is the best I've seen it run, even though it's not that impressive. Yeah, it's the best it's run for quite some time. Anyway, yeah, I won't distract from the star of today's show, the M7. Here it comes. So thanks for watching, folks. Really appreciate your company. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. Have you got one of these? What is your experience of them? Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, folks. Take care.